welcome to another episode of Husky Hoops. And with me, as always, the man himself, the voice of the Huskies, the best of the best, the GOAT, Joe D'Ambrosia. Joe, great to see you. And then, as always, UConn women's legend and current Western Connecticut State basketball head coach, Maria Conlon. Maria, how are you?
I'm great.
Lovely as always. Yes, a big week for both teams, and Coach Schumann will be here momentarily. But Joe, we watched the men on Sunday.
Well, I want to interrupt you for a minute. I think we'd be remiss if we didn't start today talking about Diana Taurasi's retirement, because
Well, I think we got to take a moment of silence for the greatest ever, never playing again.
Right. Well, Maria, you're trying to get her to look at property, in Connecticut. So,
yeah, I mean, I knew last summer it was her last year. She had told like her close knit, group and family, but to see it formally announced yesterday was definitely a little bittersweet for a few reasons. One, like she's been such a impactful person in growing the game. And two, it makes me feel really old, man.
You are.
I know. Tell me about it.
Yeah, that's right. Did you come in together with her?
Yeah.
Yeah, you guys came in together.
Yep.
That was 2000?
2000 to 2001 was our freshman year. Yeah.
Yeah. That's crazy that it was just yesterday everyone was scared of Y2K and Diana was here and now it's all going away. It's crazy.
It's cool to see some of the clips and like the old interviews though, Joe, like from back in the day. Like I'm seeing a lot of flashback stuff. It's giving me a little nostalgia.
Yep. No, that's what happens. And I mean, clearly, as impactful a player as UConn has ever had in either men's or women's basketball, a game changer, somebody who could take over a game at a moment's notice. You look at her numbers and they're kind of pedestrian, but they don't tell anywhere near the story of what she did, because the first 2 years she was a star, but she wasn't a superstar because she played with Sue and Swin and Tamika and Asia. But then when they graduated and it was basically Diana and Maria and Jess Moore and the BT Express and, all those people, that's when she became, I still think, the greatest player in UConn history.
Yeah, I would agree. I mean, freshman year, not only do we have those four guys, we had Sveti still and Shea, like
Shuey.
We still had KJ at the time. Yep. Like we were stacked, man. I mean, it was nuts. But I as much of a player she was, her personality just made her so much bigger than the game. Who she was as a person, how she was with people, I think doesn't get enough credit. Yeah, I mean, there's no player in history that I would pick on my team if I had the first pick than her.
Right. Totally agree. And, people forget this, Maria, but you don't. Her last 3 years were triggered by a brutal national semifinal game against Notre Dame.
At 0 for 14.
1 for 15, 0 for 13, 3-point range.
Yeah.
And that was a team, even though Shea and Sveta had been hurt, that was a team that could have easily won the national championship. You were up 14 in that game, and then things just fell apart. It could have been 5 straight national titles.
It's funny. Her first year, it wasn't her first year, but it was pretty early on. She was playing in the WNBA championship, and her first game in the WNBA series for that year, she went like 0 for 13. And I remember I said, listen, the last time that you went almost an 0 for, you turned around and went 3 for 3 on national championships. So I think that's a pretty good indicator of how the rest of this is going to go. But yeah, I mean, she's the type of kid, like, it doesn't matter. She could go 0 for 30. She's still taking that 31st shot.
Well, that's what made her such a great player. She was fearless.
Yeah.
You know, and I don't think, and of all of her great games, Maria and Steve, the one I remember the most was January 4th, 2023 at the XL against Tennessee, an awful snowstorm, yet the building was packed. She hit a half-court shot at halftime. She hit a three-pointer with 7 seconds to go to force overtime, and then she had the game-winning hoops in overtime. You could say the greatest individual performance, definitely in UConn women's history and maybe in all of UConn basketball history.
Well, and she just did that constantly, right? Like you just
but never like that.
But I'm saying like in terms of making that big shot, no matter when it was, like, you know, if a player can do that once in their career at that level, that's like a lot. I mean, this kid did it over and over and over again. And by the way, her junior and senior year, a lot of people don't know this. She had like a chip bone in her back. She had a lot of stuff going on. She never missed a practice. She played through it. I mean, just tough as nails. You don't make them any tougher than her.
One of a kind. One of a kind.
Yep.
Yeah. Are you surprised? Yeah. Okay. So it was a big week for both teams, the men and women. The men, the Villanova game was what it was, and then the St. John's game happened. And Joe, you predicted it perfectly. Were you surprised that they struggled with Villanova as much as they did early on?
Oh, huge. I mean, they were down 14 with 12 minutes to go.
Crazy.
You know, they lose that game and they lose to St. John's, and they might be in a play-in game in the NCAA tournament. You know, they locked up St. John's down the stretch, but that was not a virtuoso performance. And then look, St. John's is a better team, and people should get over it.
They are, yes.
You know, all this chatter. Well, you know, you can't beat a team 3 times in a year. Well, you can, because the team that's beaten you twice has the confidence that they can beat you a third time. So, matchup's a bad one. UConn can't keep up with the St. John's pressure. UConn's not deep enough. St. John's a better team. You know, they did. It was nice to see Alex get going in the second half, but that doesn't mean he's going to come out guns a-blazing tonight. The big thing about this team, Maria, has been their inconsistency.
Yeah, I mean, and I just still like, I think their inability to guard off the dribble, rim protection that we talk about is just like, it's just not great. It's just not great. And I mean, like, we could say whatever we want about the actual, I mean, Patino is doing
he's got him playing
job there too. I mean, you know, say what you want about him, but like, he's got these guys corralled and laser focused. I mean, I wouldn't be surprised that they're in the Final Four this year.
Well, I wouldn't go that far.
I wouldn't be surprised. They got the guards.
Yeah, but I just don't.
They're playing hard for him.
When a team hasn't played at that level for a time, often it's difficult when you get to the Sweet 16 and the Elite 8. And look, you know, we've talked about this all year. The Big East is mediocre at best. So, you know, they're not going to be as tested as teams from the SEC or the Big Ten. Now, they could go on a run. There's no question. But I would think if they get to the Sweet 16, that's a pretty good accomplishment.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I just, you know, you watch over and over again. I just think that, like, in boys basketball specifically, if you got some guards that get hot in the tournament, nothing surprises me. It just doesn't. And I think, I think they're just so well coached. It was pretty cool. I saw Talik posted a clip when he went into the locker room and like flipped out on the guys. And like we have to remember, like at least the Talik that I remember was he was a leader, but he wasn't like a yeller. Like he was pretty
Right.
soft spoken.
Oh yeah.
So
Yep.
I mean, Patino's it's contagious, and I'm happy for him. I love the success that they're getting. It's good. Listen, at the end of the day, it's good to see St. John's like back there again, like back to like putting them on the map a little bit. I don't know. I don't know about UConn. I'm very torn watching them play because I just feel like even the games, like even tonight, right? Like Georgetown, who the heck knows? Who the heck knows what's going to happen tonight?
Well, I would think the fact that Georgetown's best player is out, leans the game heavily in UConn's favor. But again, game to game, you don't know what you get from this team. I mean, Ball has gone into a slump. McNeely, actually looked like a freshman for the first time.
He looked a little rattled
on Sunday. Again, I understand Diarra's out there playing hurt, but he's better coming off the bench. And, other than Reed and Johnson flipping minutes in the middle, the bench is a mess. Stewart, to me, I was on Stewart's bandwagon. He's been horribly inconsistent. Forget about Mahaney. He wasn't even the first point guard off the bench on Sunday. It was Noel. And then yesterday, Hurley talks about the fact that he should have been giving Jaden Ross more moments. You know what that screamed out to me? That screamed out a guy who's afraid he's going to lose him in the portal.
Yeah. No, I thought the same exact thing.
Really?
It's almost like you go into a little bit of retention mode. And I think you start to see that with a lot of coaches this time of year, especially on the men's side.
I agree.
Is when you see a little bit of the writing on the wall with some guys that have skill that maybe you didn't give some shots that you should have. It's like retention mode because, I mean, I don't know. I totally agree with the inconsistency, and I think this is just not the time of year that you need to see that. This should be the time of year where you're getting more consistency towards the end of the season, and the bigs are still a big problem. I mean, we saw it again. I've been saying it all year. Like the leaving of the feet around the rim is just it's wild to me how they haven't kind of tied that up. But
right,
you never know. I mean, listen, anybody can string it along for 6 games. We've seen that. So.
No, I saw exactly what you were talking about, the leaving of the feet. And Reed looks like he's more comfortable in there than Johnson for sure.
Well, depending on which game you're watching, or even at times which half you're watching.
Right. I mean, even they've been, inconsistent. I mean, Reed started the second half. I don't remember that happening at all this year. When they've both been healthy. We'll see what happens tonight against Georgetown. Maybe Reed gets the start. Maybe Sampson feels more comfortable coming off the bench. I mean, he was pretty good in that role last year, as he was the backup to Donovan Clingan. But it's just, I'm going to go back to this. I think the whole three-peat thing, too high expectations on a group that had 3 guys back from a year ago, all in different roles. The teams that have won 2 in a row, for the most part, have had guys in pretty consistent roles. To win 3 in a row, you have to bring guys back in their same role. And this team, I will maintain this, that all that three-peat talk just put undue pressure on this team.
Oh, it put huge pressure on him, and it put huge pressure on him, I think, when, Hurley ended up staying, that's when, he was the one that basically initiated it, saying that, he stayed, turned down $100 million because he wanted the three-peat.
Well, we don't know he got 100. I'm going to call bullshit on the $100 million.
On the contract? Yeah. I agree with you. It probably could be. But to three-peat in the NIL era, I think is probably going to be next to impossible to do. I mean, to even back-to-back is scary impressive. And it's probably, likely you could pull it off maybe in basketball back to back, but three-peating, man, that's tough to picture in this era that we're in, unless something happens and something changes. But yeah, I agree with you. I watched that game, man. Patino looked great in his three-piece suit, and man, he's got those guys playing for him. He's got those guys playing. I think they looked well coached. Do they play all their games at the Garden? Are they
No.
always home? Okay,
No.
so they're like us. They play half and half or whatever.
I don't even know. I think they play more in Carneseca than they do in
They do. Okay.
MSG.
Okay. But yeah, they definitely look like they're on a different level than us. And it's good I think it's good for the game of college basketball to see them back. I hope that I hope they do make a run. But
yeah,
for
the game, yeah, it's good, but the game survived when they were mediocre.
It did.
I mean, it's great, and what it's doing is it's drumming up interest in New York, which is great. But the game survives without everybody. The game survives without you when UConn went mediocre from 16 to 22.
Right.
Right.
Yep. I had wanted to ask you, when the Big East initially dissolved or whatever, where did St. John's play?
They played in the Big East.
So the Big East never dissolved for basketball?
Oh, no, not at all.
Okay.
No.
UConn
the Big
just left.
The Big East decided in the dark of the night that they were going to be a basketball-only conference, which is why UConn and South Florida got kicked to the curb. There's this great narrative out there. There's this great narrative out there that UConn left the Big East, not of their own free will. If anybody thinks they'd rather be in Tulsa or Dallas or Orlando rather than New York and Washington and Philadelphia, that's one of the great what's the word I'm looking for here?
Mythical.
Yeah, that's an urban legend.
Wow,
I didn't know the Big East.
I did not know that. So when they went to the AAC, when the Big East dissolved in football, they basically were thrown out for all other sports.
Well, but I think field hockey stayed in the Big East, but everybody else had to go to the AAC.
Yeah, which was not the best place to go, but that was it for them.
Well, it was the only option at the time. They weren't going to get in the ACC. They weren't going to get into the SEC or the Big 10 or the Big 12. So they really, it was the best of a bad situation.
No, I understand. I'm up in Syracuse area, and they somewhat have buyer's remorse of being in the ACC now because they're just kind of there and average, and basketball was their sport, and they're not where they used to be. They've struggled since Boeheim left, and it's just crazy to see how the conference realignment stuff has changed the universe in some sense.
They did it for the money. I mean, they're not.
They did. No, I know.
They might have buyer's remorse, but they don't kvetch when the big check comes in from the ACC.
Nope. That's all. That's all it's about. It's about the money they get from the conference, and that's why I was curious to know what the Big East television deal was, because the ACC and the SEC, and especially now they're talking about expanding the playoffs. It's never going to end. It's just going to get too crazy. So and basketball doesn't generate the revenue that football does. So it's just going to be interesting to see how it all plays out.
And one thing too, and I want to hear Maria's thoughts on this. All this conference realignment and this expansion of the conferences, this could on the women's side, this could really hurt UConn, because these teams are not going to have as many non-conference games on their schedule, and that would be less opportunities for for UConn to play those high-profile non-conference games.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I think that would be bad news, specifically for the women.
Yeah, exactly.
Absolutely.
Exactly.
Absolutely, because they keep adding and adding and adding to the conferences. You're not going to have that non-conference schedule. I mean, even football is going to be down to.
You need that on the women's side. There's just no way. Like even if you're going to recruit, like you're not showing some South Carolina, some of these games that are on there that could hurt you recruiting wise as well. It's like, when are we going to play these big nationally televised games?
Right.
Maria, I was going to ask you, as far as the transfer portal goes, do the women, does Coach Gino, does Gino look at that as much as some of the other sports do? Or does he traditionally like to get the freshmen in?
I mean, I know that they're definitely looking in the portal. I think that they're really specific and intentional with who they look at in there. I don't think there's a lot of people that are going to pop into the portal that are going to fit that mold, and be able to play at that. Like, Lou Lopez Seneschal was a great one for UConn. I really wish her and Paige got to play together. That was a great pickup for them. I think Caitlin Chen has been a great pickup. Besides that, I don't think anyone else has come out of the portal.
The big girl from Ohio State.
What's her name? Dorka.
Yeah.
She was a good pickup too. And that was actually kind of like, that was a little bit before the portal was the portal that it is now too.
Right. Before it became formally a thing. And it's
I mean, again, I think it's got to be the perfect fit from a portal perspective. And 2 out of the 3 that they've taken out of the portal have been just for 1 year.
Right. They take the graduates.
Yeah. They haven't been multiple, Dorka's the only one that played there multiple years.
Right.
But that's what I would think. Like, if I'm going to take someone for the portal, I would want them for multiple years. I wouldn't want a 1-year rental, which a lot of people are doing.
I think it depends, right? Like listen, if you can get a really high quality kid that has a 5th year, who's got a high basketball IQ, listen, it depends on your roster and injuries too. So, sure. If you need to fill a gap for a year, I don't think it's almost like you're putting on a Band-Aid where you can go out and recruit and it buys you a year. I don't think it's a bad scenario.
Yeah. No, I completely understand that.
But I think getting kids out of the portal, I mean, look what Pitino said the other day. He'll never now he said the same thing Jim Morris said, which turned out to be a little bit of a stretch about recruiting high school kids. But, St. John's is doing much better in NIL. They can go out and buy players. They bought Kadri Richmond, and that worked out perfect.
Yep. Yeah. No, you're absolutely right. With some kids are going to go to the highest bidder. Almost all kids are going to go to the highest bidder.
Well, and by the way, some kids peak a little bit later, right? So a kid who is maybe not a complete stud as a junior, senior in high school, but grows a little bit more, develops into their body, goes somewhere else. It's almost like you're being trained to be a college athlete for a year or 2 before you get picked up by a bigger program. It's not a bad scenario to be in, because, we know that for the most of the time, right, a freshman comes in and hopefully they can give you some impactful minutes, but typically it takes a year or 2 for them to get their feet under them, adjust to the physicality and the speed before they you got your Cooper Flaggs and your Liam McNeelys, but those are, that's not the norm. That's like, those are outliers. Most of the kids that are contributing for you are, juniors and seniors every year.
Well, and it's not just adjusting to on the court. It's as big to adjust to off the court.
It's probably bigger, Joe, especially on the men's side with academics, right? Like, I think the women adjust a little bit more to college. I shouldn't say more. I would say faster, right?
Faster.
Yeah. And sometimes it takes guys just a little bit longer. And two, like it's like I said, like some of these guys, they have growth spurts like their freshman year in college. That makes you a totally different player than maybe you were viewed as a senior in high school. You hit the weight room a little bit, you
Yeah.
you gain some muscle, you're a different player now.
No, they do for sure. They do for sure. Do you think Maria, it'll go to the point where schools are taking such less freshmen that you're going to see more freshmen not even at the Division I level that may go Division II or Division III and then transfer up?
I don't think you'll see a lot of transferring up, because I think if you're a D2 kid talent wise, and like listen, the major difference, a lot of times you could have a really, really talented kid, but maybe he's 5'10". He may never be able to deal with the level of play that he has to deal with at the D1 level. What I do see is that I've been saying this for like the last 2 years. I think that college basketball in general is backlogged right now. So like let's look at the women's side for a second. And the reason why I say that is you have so many more kids playing basketball now than ever have before. And we can thank people like Diana and Caitlin Clark and Sue and all these guys, right? The interest is heightened. So you have all these extra kids. There's not enough D1 rosters. Like I'm seeing kids now that 5 years ago were no doubt D1 talent, or maybe they are D1 talent, but there's just so many more D1 talented kids out there that they're falling to D2. The D2 kids are falling to D3 because it's just completely backlogged. And I think COVID had played a big role in that, because you got a lot of kids staying for that 5th COVID year, which means you're not freeing up as many scholarships. So you don't have as many spots available on these programs. These kids are funneling down. I don't know that they ever funnel back up. Like I don't think there's a D1 program out there that's like looking at D2 transfers to fill their rosters.
Right.
Probably the other way around, right? Like some kids who maybe got recruited a little higher than they might have probably been talent-wise, and then they go down. But I don't think you're going to see a lot of like D2 studs going up to D1. I just don't see that happening.
Not in basketball.
No.
Or football.
Nope.
Other sports like baseball, that happens a lot.
Yep.
Jimmy Penders is and he's done it again this year. A lot of kids who have been great in D3 can play in D1.
Yeah.
And they've been able to fill out their roster that way.
Maria, I always wondered this because it's more prevalent for football. I didn't know if it was for basketball, where kids will do, if they don't get recruited out of high school, they'll do a post-grad year in prep school. Do they do that in basketball? Do kids PG and go to prep for basketball?
So on the boys' side, yes. But what's become, in my opinion, kind of silly, you get a lot of basketball players in general that are reclassing. So it's not like they're going to a prep year, but they're repeating their sophomore year, their junior year, their senior year, sometimes their freshman year.
Oh, wow.
Like I always say, like, I don't know who in their right mind will want to be in high school for 5 years. Like that's it's mind-boggling to me.
That is.
But that is the whole reclassing to try to like, if I reclass, maybe next year I'll be good enough to get a scholarship. And like, I don't know what the data is on if that actually works out or not. I would probably say it in most cases it doesn't. But
a kid like Flag reclassified in the other direction. He skipped a year.
Correct. Well,
he's younger. Wow. He's younger than the average Bear.
Yep. Which that is very rare right now.
That's the rarest.
I mean, you got kids graduating high school that are almost 20 years old now. It's insane.
Jesus.
Yeah.
Well, and that's the prep year. That's the prep year too. I mean, a lot of these kids go to like Montverde or Oak Hill or St. Thomas More.
Well, we've seen that with hockey for years, right? Like,
they play in the juniors. They play in the USHL. I mean, John Spetz, who's a fifth-year senior for UConn, defenseman, is almost 26 years old.
Yeah. I mean, I remember freshman year at UConn, like the freshmen men's hockey players that were there and our classmates. I mean, these guys were like 21 already as freshmen. So, I think in other sports
Wow.
you've kind of seen that for a while, but I think in basketball, yeah, I don't know. I don't know about the prep as much. I think if you're going to somewhere like Joe said, like a Montverde or something, or an IMG Academy down in Florida, like you'll see some of that. But I think it's a lot of reclassing kids that just
Well, they'll
repeat a
repeat
year.
a year.
Yeah, because you get,
And that I agree with you. That would be insane. I couldn't imagine doing that.
No.
Going back and repeating my junior year. That's just crazy. Joe, what are juniors for hockey? Do they play right out of high school for a couple years
yeah.
and then they'll go to college?
Yep, they go to the USHL or the BCHL, and they play 60 games a year, and they live with a family.
That takes
some stay a couple of years, and then they come to college hockey.
Is it a choice where they can either go to college or go pro, or do they almost always go to college?
Well, I mean, it's not. You can go from. There's nobody who goes from high school to pros.
Right.
They might go from junior to pros. And there used to be that these leagues. There was the Canadian junior hockey, there was Quebec, and there was out west, and you'd go play junior hockey there, and then go to the NHL. But now these, the USHL has really become kind of like a feeder system for the colleges.
Oh, okay. I got you. That makes more sense. But it's just interesting, the dynamic and how much the game's changing. And even with football, they want to expand the playoffs and give more spots to the SEC and the Big Ten. And it's just going to be fascinating within the next 5 to 10 years that everything could change. Joe, everyone thinks that at some point the Big Ten or the SEC together will branch off and kind of do their own thing and govern themselves. If that were to happen, would that change college basketball? Would that pull them out of college basketball with the rest of the NCAA, and they would do their own thing for that as well, you think?
It's a realistic possibility.
Wow.
That the 4 power leagues would have their own postseason tournament and leave the A-10 and the Big East and, all these Mountain West and all these other leagues. And you get to that, and then the problem is people will watch it, but it won't have the same effect as when you have one edition of March Madness.
No. There's nothing like March Madness before or after. So,
well, and it would even be a bigger deal, I think, Maria, on the women's side. If you had the Power 4 teams, UConn would win that other tournament every year.
Yep. Yeah, I agree.
Oh, they'd roll through it. It wouldn't even be close. That's scary to think about. But I mean, if the commissioners don't get along, that's their only recourse. And with the money that's involved now, it's not that far-fetched as it used to be. But yeah, I was just curious about it because it just seems like we're drifting further and further away, and the NCAA is so hesitant to make any step in and make any rulings on anything, that they're just letting everything go.
Well, because if the NCAA steps in, the Power 4 leagues will just say, screw you, and go off on their own.
Either that or they'll get sued. I agree. So,
the NCAA pretty much has their hands tied.
They do. They're damned if they do, damned if they don't. If they do, you're right. There's nothing that could prevent anyone else from walking, and there's nothing to prevent them from suing. And they've already set precedent that they will lose in court. So it's just interesting to see everything that's going on right now, and all the television money, and after the SEC signed their banner television deal, and they're going to sell off the playoff rights and expand it for college football to probably 14 to 16. in the next 5 to 10 years. That's just crazy. I don't mind the expanded playoffs. I just think 12 games and then playoffs, I think that's a little too much on the kids.
Well, for the real good teams, it's 12 games, then a conference championship, and then
the conference championship. Right. Jeez, you're right. You're right.
Those teams this year were playing 16 games.
16 games. Yeah. You're 100% right on that. Maria, the women, like you predicted, would win by 50 points against Butler and Seton Hall, and they just look like they should have, but they look like they're hitting their stride at the right time.
Yeah, Caroline Ducharme checked in for the first time.
That was the best part of the weekend for me, was seeing her play.
Yeah, that was great to see. Yeah, I mean,
that's a great story.
They play Creighton tomorrow at home. Creighton gave them a little bit of trouble down there, but I just don't see us losing that. I mean, we're not going to lose again for the rest of the season, in my opinion. In terms of regular season and Big East tournament, I don't think anybody has the depth that we have right now, especially with everybody back and healthy.
That's the biggest thing, is staying, knock on wood, stay healthy, and they should roll through the Big East tournament. Now, do you think that they will end up a number 1 seed?
I really don't. I think they're going to be a 2 seed. I'd be shocked if they got the 1.
Really?
There's been a couple of, what's hard is that the people that are losing above them are losing to each other. So unless there's some big shakeups in conference tournament play, I just don't think so, which there could be. I think USC plays UCLA this week. I forget what day it is. Right. But again, you're talking about the, people that are within the top 6 anyways. So, and their schedule in terms of RPI and all of that is much greater than ours. So I don't know that we get awarded. I don't think we're going to get rewarded for winning the Big East tournament. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, not at all.
I think if we get a 1 seed, it's because somebody else didn't take care of their business. That's all. But I don't think it matters. I really don't. You're 1 or you're 2. You're gonna have to go through 1 or 2 to make the Final Four. So it's the only way it's gonna really make a difference is if they fall to a lower 2 seed when they're having to play one of the top number 1 seeds. But as of right now, I don't see why we wouldn't get the number 1, 2 seed if we fell there.
Hi, Dave.
Hello. You guys having a good day?
Good to see you.
I hope you guys are having a good day. I love Joe's background. Still my favorite background of all, the brick wall.
He looks like he's
be careful. Throw you right into that brick wall. You better be careful.
Exactly.
He looks like he's in the penitentiary with that.
I love it. Joe, I'll break you out, Joe. I'll break you out.
Thanks, Shu. I appreciate it.
And then we'll go have a slice of pizza over at Maria's place. That sounds good to me. Oh, man.
No, I was just we were talking about the St. John's game, and I know you watched that as well. They just looked great.
They're just better.
Right. They look just better coached, better talent, and they just believe.
Yeah, they're just better. I mean, coaching. Look, Pitino's a great coach, obviously, but and it's cool. I like. I've enjoyed watching a lot. I don't know if it's like a documentary they're doing on St. John's football. I don't know how these clips keep coming into my feed on it, and I've enjoyed it actually because it's interesting because a lot of Hurley's clips, obviously, because we do so much stuff, comes into my feed too. But it's interesting Pitino's approach to the team and how in an era where you would think that approach may not have success, it is having tremendous success, and now, obviously anytime the camera's on, you never know how much these guys already, is there a fact that they know that the camera's on them? I don't know. Joe would know more than I would about that kind of stuff.
1,000%.
Yeah. So I think that there is something to that. There's no doubt about it.
It's called performance art.
Yes. You think they're all performers, especially when they're on these documentaries.
I think 99% of them are. I think Dan is. I don't think there's any question.
Yeah.
You think he's that good to be a performer?
Well, I think he's passionate, and I think he they know when the mic and the camera are in the huddle. But it's fine. It's all entertainment. At the end of the day, we forget all this is entertainment. It's no different than going to the movies or going to an opera or going to a play or turning on the TV. It's entertainment at the end of the day. And if guys are good at that, then good. I don't have a problem with it.
It's the greatest form of live entertainment you can get now, because there isn't. It's the new reality show. I mean,
that's why. Yeah, that's why people pay.
The game itself was always a reality show, long before the focus on the coaches and the players outside of what they're doing in the games. But now I think TV networks more than ever realized the only thing bringing people back to the TV is sports. Right. And so the more they make the other part of the game, not what's going on between the lines, but the stuff that's going on. Although, I guess the gamblers would say there's stuff going on between the lines, but outside of that, the more they bring the other part into it, the more it is really truly a show like you would watch, before, when they used to have scripted television shows that, I watched as a kid. Those are replaced, a lot of it, by sports and the entertainment around the actual game. Like it's as much as you watch clips, you're watching Hurley clips, or you're watching, like, I enjoy Gino now is on. I'm sure Maria sees Gino's on. Like, there's this sports psychologist guy that I guess he must have either Gino as a client or he's paying Gino. I don't know, but Gino speaks at a lot of things, and they come into my feed. I mean, it's very interesting to hear their philosophies on things, and like that was not like 30 years. I mean, try to think about it. Bear Bryant.
Yeah, no, he wasn't.
I mean, how many conversations? My favorite videos. There's an old video on YouTube, Bear Bryant going through how he, does his plays and stuff, and his little philosophy. When I tell you, it's like his philosophy thing is like a minute and a half to 2 minutes. That's it. It's not a diatribe of 30 minutes speech, like it is now. So,
well, of course, Bear Bryant would probably be in jail if he coached today too. You have to remember that.
Well, definitely.
He'd be locked up somewhere in a penitentiary.
Great, that's a great movie, by the way. The
Junction Boys. That's not a great movie.
Yeah,
great movie.
Are you kidding me? You like the Junction Boys?
Oh, it's a great movie. Yeah.
That's 2 hours of torture.
Why?
It made me not want to play football after watching that.
Well, it tells you what it was like. That's the thing that I think is. And I don't listen when I come away from.
They stunk too.
You want to know what I took away from it, and then you can tell me what you took away from it. Here's what I took away from Junction Boys. Okay, I took away from Junction Boys that he knew he tortured those guys. He was young. He didn't really know, outside of him being a great player and maybe had a couple great mentors, he didn't know how to be a head coach, and he tortured them. And he wore the only ring he ever wore was the one of that team, because that team, he had respect for them. And yes, you could argue that those guys pass it out. That was probably not a good thing, but it was a different, part of it was at a different time. And there's it's from an era where there was a respect for the coaches that were coaching you. And listen, you could argue that it was to a fault back then and all those kind of things. I get it. And you could argue, obviously it was before, that was what, Texas A&M. I mean, it was before blacks were allowed to play in the South and all that stuff. And, and Bear Bryant had to change the time. But there was it's very interesting to see the thought process to me of how coaches were. Listen, I was just on a podcast and I was talking with a guy who played at Cincinnati and he coached at St. Joe's Regional, which is a powerhouse program in New Jersey.
Yeah.
We were talking about, my safeties coach in high school, he used to smoke cigarettes on the field. Like, yeah, literally.
Yeah.
Now, those things are not allowed now,
No.
But I could tell you this. He was a fantastic safeties coach. He was also my athletic director. They don't let athletic directors coach anymore, like when you're in a position. But he was my athletic director, and he was the assistant. He wasn't a coordinator or anything anymore. He was older. He was the athletic director. He was the safeties coach. There's obviously you always have to continue to evolve and things change, but there were some cool things about the fact that there was a level of like, you know what, like my coach said something, I went and did it, and I did it to the best of my ability. You have to adapt to the times. You got to be able to be more relatable. That part changes, but you're right. I think Joe's right that the TV element of it all is change the way coaches act. They are now stars too. Right. They are superstars. They are really, really TV, not just like coaching superstars. They can all say that they are just coaches, which, Maria is just a coach, right? Is coaching. She's at Division III. The cameras aren't on her all the time. I'm sure they probably do try to get some camera time on you, Maria, but it's different in that the coaches are stars as much as the players are because the cameras are on them.
But in college, not in the pros.
Not as much in the pros. You're right. I mean, definitely not in basketball in the pros as much. Football, I would say it depends. Andy Reid, it probably is.
But that's one guy. I mean, Andy Reid and who else? Sean McDermott's not a superstar.
No, you're right.
He's not. Campbell's becoming one. Mike McCarthy, Brian Daboll. I mean, when you go to the pros, you have to kind of put your ego in check.
Big time.
Coaching those guys.
Big time, because they won't play for you if they don't respect you.
And basketball, it's even more about the players at the pro level, both women and men. So it's a. You're right. I would say, they're less of the stars. Like, I mean, there's not that many Phil Jacksons anymore, or what's the guy?
Got Riley.
Yeah.
Exactly. Right.
So, Maria, you look comfortable.
I am.
Nobody cares. Work harder.
Yeah, I got up here for 8:00 today. I had a recruit come up for a visit with her mom, so we did the tour and stuff. I got to go meet them in a little bit. We have 2 campuses at WestConn. We have West Side and Midtown, so I'm a little tired today.
What was your biggest takeaway from coaching this season, Maria?
Patience, man. Patience. It's like you just got to be patient.
Do you have patience?
No.
Yes, you do. Yes,
yeah, she puts up with.
I love your honesty. I love it.
No, I knew that was going to be my biggest struggle coming here, was just being patient, because anytime you got to build something, it takes time. But I'm not, when it comes to winning, I'm not really patient. I think one of the biggest takeaways though too at this level is like, just getting used to the level of kids. Like, high school is so different now. Like, I think my big takeaway is to really study high school coaches and pull kids from programs that have great high school coaches. Because if not, like, you're starting from scratch and you got to teach them, like, basic man-to-man principles on defense, etc. So I think my big takeaway is that don't ever take for granted having a good youth or high school coach that develops kids the right way. So,
do you think patience is even harder, Maria, for somebody like you who's had success at every level?
Yeah, I think it's partially that, and I think it's partially like I've always worked for every little thing I've gotten. So, like, I have no understanding at times, or like I can't relate to people that like don't give 110% every single day. And I think when you go to different levels, like sometimes it's a skill or a physical reason why you're a D3 kid, but I think sometimes part of it is like you don't want to work as hard as the kids that want to go D1. Like you just don't want those same results. So I think for me that's the tougher part is like, oh man, like how do you I can't relate to people that don't go 110% all the time in anything that they do. Why do it if you're not gonna?
No, totally agree.
Yeah.
How many girls are you bringing in this year?
So we have 12 returning, so I would like to bring in
Couple.
6.
Oh, you can bring it. Wow.
Yeah, D3 is weird, like because I could do a JV thing and a varsity thing here, so it's about getting bodies and developing. And you just never know. Like we had 3 kids get injured this year. You got to prepare for kids and not want to play. So
do they all get financial
you need to have
aid?
bigger numbers.
They all get aid packages or no?
They'll get financial aid. If they have good grades, they'll get academic merit too. So
you got to go visit in New Jersey, IHA, Holy Angels, Pascack Valley, St. John Vianney. Those are probably.
Yeah, I'm not going to be able to pull anybody from St. John. I mean, I'll try.
St. John will have too many Division I kids.
Yeah. Some of those programs are just too good. But
maybe Holy Angels, Pascack Valley.
Yeah,
because Pascack Valley's public school, great program.
Yeah.
They may have more D3 kids because it's public school, and then but yeah, and I guess they used the other place that was great was Saddle River Day, but I don't know. They may also have I think they have a mix of Division I but they may be like mega high academic kids if they're D3. I'm not 100% sure, but you got to get to at least Northern Jersey because it's close to you.
Yeah,
at least Northern Jersey.
If you want to get to pay in-state tuition here if they're from Jersey.
Yep, I learned that from you, by the way.
Yeah,
I had that conversation with somebody the other day about the recipient. They were like, I can't go to school here because it would be. I'm like, no, you can.
Yeah, I wish they did it with Mass too, but we don't.
So, Joe, I know we got to get going. Your prediction for this week with Georgetown, Providence. Who do you like in both games? Do you think we cruise in both games?
No.
No, you think we're going to struggle?
I think tonight could be a cruise. I think Saturday will be a rock fight. It always is at Providence, even though they're not as skilled as UConn. They'll be pumped up because that crowd will be all over UConn, all over Hurley. I think they
play hard for that guy too. They play hard for him. I like him.
They don't get much of a break from the officials.
Mm-hmm.
They tend to get hosed an awful lot.
Yeah.
Because of him, because he's only in his second year, but he's a really good coach. So I would think 1-1s. I don't think 0-2 can happen. I don't think I don't think 0-2 can happen. 2-0 could happen, but I think 1-1 is more likely.
Realistic. Wow. Okay. Did we beat Providence the first time around?
Yeah.
Okay.
But they had to come from behind in that game.
Yeah. Right.
I remember that. Yeah.
Right. Maria, what do you think?
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I said it earlier. Nothing surprises me with this men's team now. I could see us going 2-0. I could see us. I don't think we'll go 0-2. I don't think Georgetown beats us tonight.
Right.
I just don't think that's going to happen. But I could see us losing at Providence.
And then the women with their final 2 games and senior night. How do you see that playing out?
I don't think they're going to lose either game.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. No, I agree.
I think Craven will hang in there a little bit tomorrow, but unless they shoot like the complete lights out of the gym, I still think we win by 20 or 30.
Yeah. Joe?
Same thing. I totally agree with Maria. I don't see who in the Big East is gonna compete with this team. I think Maria hit the nail on the head. I think Creighton's the best of the rest in the Big East. But at the XL Center last time for Paige at the XL Center, I think and then, senior night, even though they'll still have 2 more home games. I don't see how this team loses before the at the earliest at the Sweet 16.
Yeah.
Dave, what do you think?
I think this is probably a pretty easy one to be in complete agreement on. So there's no. I mean, I haven't seen a game in the Big East where it felt like they were really even in a situation where they were going to have a problem, even if they struggled in a few minutes here or there. They're at a different level. They're just at a different level, and there's a select group of like 12 teams that are kind of around that level. And then there's a drop. I mean, Creighton, I think, is 22 maybe or something.
They're 22nd. Yeah,
they're the only other Big East team ranked, and there's such a drop off to that level. So, and the men, they should go 2-0, but they're so spotty. It's who knows?
All right. Well, Joe, thank you. Thank you. The best of the best, the voice of the Huskies, the GOAT, the man himself, Joe D'Ambrosia, and Maria Conlin, UConn women's legend, Western Connecticut State women's basketball coach. Thank you both. And Dave, remember, when life gives you lemons, don't make lemonade. Take 2 oranges, throw them back at life.